Welcome to Stubs with Jason. S-T-U-B-S spells Stubs. S-T-U-B-S spells Stubs. Stubs. Hey people, welcome to Stubs with Jason, where I discuss movies, music, TV, pretty much all kinds of things on all kinds of screens. This week we will be discussing really big screens, like the kind you'd see at a concert venue. I've been out for a while. The biggest gap between episodes. Had a family trip, got back from the family trip, got really sick, almost went to the emergency room, then kind of had like miracle antibiotics prescribed, and got all turned back around and was luckily able to make the trip that I had planned, I don't know, a few months ago. A few months ago, I think. But really, a few months ago isn't really like when this trip was conceived. This trip starts all the way back in like probably 2013, 2014. I was a heartbroken dude, and I had a good buddy who was also going through his own fair share of heartache at the time. And, you know, we were good friends before, and we kind of just forged our way through these troubled times together. But it was great. And, you know, like, we really, our friendship really developed over that. Well, you know, this resulted in a lot of, like, late night driving on Saturday nights after having a couple of drinks and going out to the bars for a bit, and just jamming to all kinds of music, all kinds, 80s, 90s, 2000s, just whatever was coming through, whatever we could sing as loud as we could, just working our way through it. And it was beautiful. But as a result of that, it kind of came this conversation and this like bucket list trip of like, hey, one day we've got to go see a concert at Red Rocks Amphitheatre. Now, I chuckle. Like, I can honestly say, when I think back about my life at that time, it was impossible. There was no way this trip was ever going to happen. I was a single dad, raising two kids. I wasn't making no money, but, like, I was not making crazy money by any stretch of the imagination. Not that I make crazy money now. So we started with just trying to whittle down this list. Like at this point in time, Red Rocks Amphitheatre, you know, it was like this venue that was bigger than almost what we could imagine. Like you just see videos on YouTube and pictures, and it just seemed surreal, you know? So we started working on our lists of like, well, who are these bands? Who would we, and we found it was very difficult. And it was like, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Like, he'd throw out something like Oasis, and I'd be like, never in my life. That is not my Red Rocks show. Alanis Morissette, Coldplay, all kinds of things went back and forth. And I mean, there'd be random texts at like 1 a.m, and it would just be an artist. No further no additional details. It'd just be that artist. And we knew exactly what we were talking about. So there was a lot of that for a while, probably for 2 or 3 years. And again, you know, finding that artist that we mutually agreed on was really tough. We have a lot of similar music that we like, but I mean, he's a little younger. So I mean, like, there's just some bands that he might feel more strongly about. There's some bands I might feel more strongly about. And I think there's only really a handful of bands that we really share strong passion for. And we weren't even like approaching the idea of even being able to make this trip. Like, I was still nowhere near that at that point in time. We had done one or two nights in Chicago. We went and saw Foo Fighters at Wrigley, and like that was huge, right? Like it took a lot to make that happen, So, life went on. We always just kind of talked about it. It was always there. Always something that, eventually I started getting, my legs under me, getting a little better off. My buddy also got his legs under him. Everybody, we started seeing a little bit of success in life. Not, again, nobody's, we're not super wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but I'd say we're both doing all right. We're making a fair living at this point in time. Eventually it looks like, all right, well, this might happen. It was still a stretch for me because, again, justifying that trip to go out there and do all that without my kids seemed really hard. And again, it was just the cost of it all. Well, fast forward 7 or 8 years, and you never know where life's going to bring you. And sure enough, my buddy had a life decision to make, and he had found a girl who he's in love with, and they're engaged. They're going to get married. And the life decision was, it was time for her to relocate due to her career. And there were a few options. There were a couple of different locations on the table. And wouldn't you know it, Denver, Colorado, one of these potential landing spots. So that's where life took them. And, I obviously, heartbroken to see my good friend move away. But, we live in a different time. We got Xbox, got Face, all kinds of ways to keep in touch, And this trip really became like now I've just got to fly out there and pay for a ticket. And the, not having to pay for that hotel room for that time being out there made this all a little more feasible, Definitely took it to another level. But, the downside of what had occurred over that decade is, I guess, a bunch of sound ordinances had passed in the area. So now the size of the artists that were coming to Red Rock had kind of shrunk down a bit. Not that there aren't good artists that go to Red Rock. There are still great artists that go to Red Rock, but not as many. They're more likely to play Ball Arena, which is where I think the Nuggets play. Then you've got the field. You got where the Broncos play, and there's where the I think it's Coors Field. I could be wrong, but wherever the Rockies play, there's just other places that they can come and play now in Denver, and they have a greater capacity. They don't have to worry about sound ordinances. So anyway, again, this conversation was still kind of would pop up every once in a while, and I think we would both kind of look. But again, now that he's living out there, we don't know the full timetable as far as how long he's going to be out there. We intensified our how often we checked who was coming to Red Rocks at this point in time. So one day earlier in the year, I just got a message, and it was, well, what do you think about Third Eye Blind? And my gut reaction is like, nah. That's just an okay band. Not that, I mean, look, to me, it wasn't the band that I was like, oh, I've got that's a top level band that we both really love that we're going to go see at Red Rock. But, at this point in time, there's too many other clocks counting down in our lives, like we can't wait forever. You just can't wait forever. And you can't just keep pushing this thing down the road, assuming you're going to have the time and the resources. I was like, let's do it. So we did, and so we got our tickets settled up, got everything all good to go. Finally have a date on the calendar to finally make my way out to Red Rock Amphitheatre to check out a show. I felt pretty good about it, and I was like, all right, well, we can go and have a good time. Like, I'm going to have a great time for about 6 or 7 songs, 6 or 7 bangers, and that's all right. I've been to concerts knowing way less than that. So like I said earlier, I was really sick a week and a half or the week before this trip, I didn't sleep for 4 days. I was coughing. It was just as bad as any case of corona I had ever had. It was terrible, and I was miserable, and I had symptoms I've never experienced before, and yeah. Day before I was supposed to fly out, I was supposed to go watch an air show out in Dayton, and I ended up just giving those tickets away because I didn't feel comfortable. I was like, well, if I'm going to have a chance at all at flying, I need to do a little bit of rest. So I kind of hung out, did a little bit of work around the house, didn't push myself too hard, but I was like, okay, I think I'm good. I think I'm going to make it. Had an all right night of sleep. It wasn't terrible. Packed late. Everything was last minute. So I'm on my way to the airport, and I start coughing a little bit, and I'm just kind of worried, I'm going to mask and wear, and all that stuff and everything. And my daughter driving me out there is like, well, don't die, Dad. And this sent me into, like, a minor panic. Like, I had a moment. I definitely had a moment. I called my buddy. I was like, should I make this trip? He was like, are you okay? Can you do it? Do you think you're okay? And I said, I was until about 2 minutes ago. And he was like, yeah, you should do this trip. And I'm glad he did, because I needed it. I was just letting fear get the best of me. I was all in my head. Like I said, I had some weird symptoms I'd never experienced before. This was all a lot. So anyways, get on this plane, hop my way out there, spend a couple days resting out west, go to some cool places, do some cool things, but I'm still taking it pretty easy. But then it's time, and it's concert night, and let me tell you, we're driving out there. We've got literally a car full of people, and it's kind of a mess, guys, as far as like parking. If you've ever been to Cuyahoga Falls, it's a little bit like that, just with elevation. So that's kind of fun, right? We ended up finding a good spot though. And then we started trekking our way in there. And I'm going to tell you, so you kind of got some ups and downs. And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm really out of shape right now. As I keep saying, I was at my highest score as far as my weight goes, which wasn't true. Because I was sick, I had definitely lost a good 10 pounds or somewhere around there. But still, I am not in good shape right now. And then I was, again, still somewhat recovering from all of this mess. When it came time to actually go up into the amphitheater to get to the entry gates at the venue, it's a bit of a hike, guys. Let me tell you, that elevation is the great equalizer and the great humbler. It's the great humbler. You will find humility. So that's my first piece of advice. If you ever plan on taking a trip out to this venue, do a little bit of cardio leading up to that trip, because let me tell you, it'll help you out a little bit, because, yeah, that's a steep incline that you're climbing up, just the stairs just to get up there. Then you just get to the gates. Well, then you got a bit more of a steep incline just to get to your seat. So I stopped a couple of times. I wasn't shy about it. I knew I kind of had compromised breathing as it was, and I wasn't looking to push myself or anything like that. I just wanted to make sure I get up there and have a good time and, be able to take this all in. So the first band, I think they're called Arizona. I have no idea who they were. We kind of just got bits of them. We did finally walk in as they were playing. Then we get in, and it's, immediately it's like, once you enter into that venue, as far as the proper venue, like when you see the stage and you look at the verticality of how they have everyone seated and positioned in there, and you just see these giant red rocks, on each side of the seating area, it's just incredible. Like, as soon as you walk in, you're just like, oh my gosh. And as you pass the stage, you look in there, and it's the stage itself is just a stage, it's nothing special. But, you make your way up to the seat. We're in the general admission seating area, which was thankfully pretty high up. And I mean, pretty high up, thankfully for my view, not so much for my breathing. But I got up there, slowly but surely, and made my way into it. We got over. We kind of got right in the middle, And there I was. And at this point, the second band is on, and it's Yellow Card, who I had heard of. And I think I recognized, and I know I recognized a couple of the songs, but I didn't really know them, where like there were all these people a little younger. It was a very loud, like that venue was on fire. The crowd loved those songs, My buddy was like, that is my high school. Like, that is what it's all about, And at that point, I'm just chuckling because it's like, yeah, man, when this song came out, like, I had a baby already. Like, I was married. Like, so it's just funny to think about how just a few years can make such a big difference. But that's just, So again, I wasn't super into that band. And Yellow Card was fine. Like, the crowd was pretty into them. They kind of fell victim to the standard second band wall of noise that happens, though. Like, I don't know why there's some unwritten rule that the opening acts have to have kind of a crappy mix going on, but gosh dang, there was a crappy mix that went on a few times. For 80% of the show is fine, but for 20%, the guitars just turned into mud and noise, and you couldn't separate anything, and it was just not great for me anyway. But I'm sure if you were a Yellow Card fan, you didn't mind. You were just enjoying the show. And they came with great energy, and they played their set, and they were tight. And they had great interaction with the crowd. For an opening act or the second act, however you want to look at that, I thought they did just fine. Most of their set was during the day, or still out, there was still light out. So it was just fine. I could take in the view, and it was okay. It was nice. It was a nice view. As the evening went on, though, the sun went down, the sky kind of changed, Third Eye Blind took the stage. Let me tell you, we went to another place, man. It did. It elevated the whole thing. Like as soon as it got dark, it just became magical. It was so awesome. It was great. The sound was incredible. Third Eye Blind came out. Didn't take them long to start getting into some of the bangers. They played a really good set. I would imagine. I can't think of any of the, they did Jumper. They did Semi-Charmed Life. Losing a Whole Year. Graduate. I Never Let You Go. All of that stuff. They did good, and they sounded really good. They had a great sound. The way they were positioned up on stage was kind of weird. They were all like clustered together by the drums for a while, and one guitarist was out on his own. But eventually, they all kind of took a little more of a traditional stance out on stage. But just about anybody could have been on that stage playing anything, and as you just look out there, above this stage, you've got this music coming, and you see the city in the background, and they're just lights, and it just looks like you're looking at stars. It's just amazing. And the whole time you're listening to this music, you can't help but glance to the left and the right as you look at the giant rocks, and they've got color lights up on them, and they just look incredible. I posted a couple of pics already on my Facebook, and I encourage you to go find them, or I might throw a couple more out there now that once I get this out there. It was great. It was awesome. You get lost, and it's like you want to sit and enjoy the show, and you're supposed to be looking down at this stage, but everything around you just is like demanding to be looked at. More so than the music and the musicians that's happening. But they, Good for them. They said that it was, they had great crowd interactions and said they had issues there before with elevation and all that, and they kind of were a little more prepared this time. At one point, they broke their, they just came down and played like on they rolled out a couple of couches, did an acoustic segment. I didn't know any of the songs, but it was great. And, suddenly you get this free little mini concert within a concert. So the crowd was great, those big songs from the 90s that we all know. Everyone knew. It was beautiful to listen to the 10,000 voices sing them, It ended up being a much better show than I thought. I was really happy by the end of the night. Like, I was able to see some lightning out in the distance, out well past, nowhere near any kind of concern, but so, I mean, just the views that you took in, can't really say enough about it. And like I said, it was, it sounded great too. It was, yeah. So at one point I looked over at my buddy and I was like, we're not doing too bad for a couple of jerks that were taking technical support calls for a regional cable company 10 years ago or 12 years ago or whatever it was. That's how we met. That's how me and my friend met. Life's been pretty good to us. I know everybody's, we've all had ups and downs and wins and, losses, but it was a great moment. It was a great moment for a couple of guys who had put this on our bucket list and were actually able to do it. And you just never know. You never know what life's going to throw your way and what opportunities you might have, but you just got to be willing to jump at the ones that come across your plate, guys. I mean, if you sit there and just keep saying, we'll wait, that's something that's going to happen, this isn't it. You're taking a chance when you assume that you're going to have time. So overall, let's get to the real nitty-gritty here, which is to stub or not to stub. And I'm going to do a couple of things here. So, Third Eye Blind, to stub or not to stub. I say stub. If you enjoy Third Eye Blind, they're still playing great sets. They sounded great. They had great energy. I have zero regrets seeing Third Eye Blind. I had a lot of fun. Again, I don't know all this. I don't know all the words even to all their big hits, but I mean, I knew enough of them to have a great time, and even that doesn't really matter. You're going to know enough. So if you get a chance, go check out Third Eye Blind. I know they're coming here to Ohio soon, I'm pretty sure, actually. Check them out if you like them. They're going to be in Cincinnati. They're also going to go to Cuyahoga Falls. Between those two venues, I'm always going to recommend Cuyahoga Falls as the better venue, but Cincinnati is obviously the quicker trip. So you got to just pick your poison at that point in time. Third Eye Blind, 8.6 out of 10. Why not? Definitely stubs. Definitely recommend that stub. If you have anything in your heart for Third Eye Blind, 90s alternative music. It's a beautiful time. Beautiful memories tied to that time in my life. As far as Red Rocks goes, I spent a lot of time talking here, and I'll be the first to tell you that I don't have the words to explain how great that venue is when everything is coming together. When you've got a beautiful moment in music and there's great lights going on and they've got a great production mixed with that view, there's a reason why this venue is on so many people's bucket lists. So I'm going to say absolutely worth the stub. I know that's a lot. There's a lot of circumstances, right? Like, that's me saying it would be worth the flight it would have been worth me paying for a hotel room, I think, for a couple of nights. I just would have had to push it back to later in my life, if that would have been the case at this point in time. Because I just probably wouldn't have taken that kind of trip without my kids. But anyway, if you can take your kids, or if you've got a partner in life that you want to go and share those kind of things, find somewhere for your kids to go for a weekend, or a weekday, or whenever it is. Find an artist that you love. Find an artist that you can enjoy. I know Britt Floyd's going to be there. Like, I would love to go back and watch that show there. That would be incredible. Steve Martin and Martin Short are supposed to be there. Again, there's always music. There's always artists that are going to be there. 311, I think I saw, is going to be there soon. And then as the local people were telling me, they're like, if you're into EDM, this is your spot. Like, apparently huge for the EDM scene. And that's not really my thing, but, if that's your thing, I can't imagine a better place to go and do that, to go take that all in. So, overall, yeah. Stub, it's a 10. Like, it is an amazing venue that is worth seeing. Definitely consider your health situation. It is a bit of a hike to get up in there. And then my other advice is, if you ever do make this trip, just be mindful of where you get your tickets, because there's proper seating. It's all kind of the same seat, and everything just has a number on the benches kind of thing that you sit on, which were surprisingly comfortable. Like, when you go in there, it looks like concrete benches, and you're like, well, this is going to be awful on my back. And I got to say, I spent a lot of the night standing, but still, when I did sit for a bit, it was comfortable, and it was fine. It was not a big deal. So, but keep that in mind, in the sense of, the lower you are, the closer you are to the stage, the less of the magic you're really going to get to take in. Because this place is definitely all about being at a high enough elevation where you've got this stage in front of you, and you get the view of the city, and you get the view of the weather as it comes and to and fro in the, in the distance. And you can kind of just occasionally glance to the sides and take in these rocks. And yeah, just keep that in mind. And yeah, I really recommend this venue. If it's on your list already, hopefully I've given you further inspiration to make that trip one day. If it wasn't on your radar, maybe you don't even know what Red Rock Amphitheatre is. Go check out some videos, and even with that in mind, like, it's just more than words can describe. So that's all I got. And again, I know it's been a while. I'm sorry that it's been a while since my last upload, but like I said, there's just been a little bit going on. The great news is I've watched a handful of movies since I've uploaded. So I got to do a little bit of catch up. I don't know if I'm going to kind of consolidate a few, or if I'm going to just kind of make a couple of shorter ones. I'm not really sure. But this was the one that I knew I needed to get out and get done first, because it was definitely, of all the things that I've done lately that would get a Stubs review, this was the most important thing that I've done as far as needing that Stubs review. All right, I can feel myself getting short of breath again. Still haven't fully recovered from this thing. We'll hopefully get this trimmed down, get some other ones out, get it posted, shared out there to the rest of the world. As always, give it a like, subscribe, share, anything you can do to get it out there. I really appreciate it. If you're new, hope you enjoyed. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. Get out there and share me and find me wherever you can, and hope to hear from you soon. Feel free to shoot me an email at stubsjason@gmail.com. And that's all for now, guys. Until next time. S T U B S spells stubs. S T U B S spells stubs.
All done.
Stub, 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 stubba, stubba, a stubba, stubba, a stubba.